ADD, because you may want to say something back. So, because they're telling me to give it to you just in case you have something to say back. ADD is a huge blessing, but do you know why kids get labeled as ADD before we go back here? Do you know why? No? Do you know why kids, let's say it differently, do you know why kids are born and have ADD quite young? They're what? They're bored. On a soul level, they're meant for a lot. They're very, very creative. They're very, very, very sensitive. And all of this is not up here on the emotional scale. They're not on number one. So it's like, oh, that doesn't feel so good. I'm going to go over here. Oh, that doesn't feel, I'm going to go over here. So they're labeled AD because they constantly want distraction. But they're actually, on a soul level, born on the planet to help us shift and bring greater light and greater joy. Does that make sense? So in some ways, yes, ADD is a gift, but in some ways, the way our society is, we're do. If any of you guys have it or have kids have it, you know, it gets labeled as something bad. But if you've gotten the label, you know it's quite a gift too.
It can be, but
Sorry, hon. Thanks.
there's a lot of depression related to it as well.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the ADD can bring in some depression. Where do you sense the depression comes from? Go right there.
Well, being ADD, not following through on projects, disappointment, value.
Okay, slow
Stuff
down
like
for a
that.
quick second. So could you see that the disappointment and the value that you described is the personal response to what's happening?
Sure.
Like your personal label.
Personalizing it, yeah.
Exactly. And I'm going to take it a bit deeper. Could you also see that when people respond like that, and their mind kind of is on a project and it leaves it all of a sudden, it's more than likely they haven't built enough momentum towards that project. Because if there's a lot of momentum towards it, they'd just run with it, ADD or not. Does that make sense? So when an ADDer understands momentum and understands focus and all of that, their ADD can actually shift profoundly, because what's happening, one of the reasons ADDers, to use that expression, shift a lot between projects is because they get really, really excited about this project. And they're very excitable people, very creative, excited people. Oh my God, this is so good, so good. And then they get going. But they haven't built what we call momentum towards it. So it's just like, and then because they don't have the momentum towards it, they can't carry it. And then they go to the next project. So building momentum is one of the biggest things for ADDers, and we'll teach you guys how to do that right now. Does that make sense? And then you'll stop getting mad at yourself so often. And you'll see each project as beautiful and wonderful and not make yourself wrong. And the other thing they want me to say to you too, what's common, and it applies to you, and also a lot of people, though not everybody with ADD, is a lot of people with that label tend not to do so well in cities, and they tend not to do as well in jobs that are like this. Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
They tend to be the creative ones on farms. You know?
Okay.
That kind of
Yeah.
do, not that you have to live on a farm,
Sounds
or
like
the
my
creative
dream
one
life.
in a commune, or, you know,
Yeah.
in that kind of field,
Yeah.
because that's where they do well, so their creativity can come out really beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
That helps. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's just sort of like picture I keep seeing is, imagine I took a bunch of people from middle of Africa who wear the dress wear. It's funny, you guys were talking about Africa this morning, weren't you? And they do the dance, they do all of that, and they live their life on the land. So they go and hunt their animals, they eat it, they cook it. It's, you know, what we think of, right? And that's just what they do. And they don't wear shoes necessarily, and they live in the tribe type of environment. And we took them, and we didn't let them change a thing. They still have to wear that dress, and they still want to do their dance. They still want to go out and kill animals to eat. That was what they know. We took them, and then we stuck them downtown Vancouver, and they were only allowed in downtown Vancouver. How would they survive? Same analogy. So really, I'm using a very severe or serene analogy, but we want you to get that that's the same as putting you in a job that's a computer job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's the same disfit. It's not who you are.
Yeah, it doesn't fit. Yeah. That was me 5 years ago.
And what a lot of people with ADD try to do is they try to make themselves fit. So they make themselves wrong. I should know better. There's something wrong with me. I've got this label. There's something wrong with me. I got to take a drug. And then and there's nothing wrong with the medications, but the medications help them function. right? And there's nothing wrong with them. But eventually, what almost everybody I work with who has ADD say, is they want to get off the medications, not because they don't like them, but because they want to have more of that creativity, joy juice coming out of them. So they can live in that and dance and be who they are. There's nothing wrong with you at all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you just have to work with it. Really.
Exactly, and play with it.